Hi there, folks. Frank Thacker here, and welcome to the Daily Peacemaker. I was just getting ready to do this episode video, and I heard about the murders or the shootings in San Jose on today being the May 26th. And so to hear stuff like that, it gets obviously a little disheartening, but I don't lose hope, but it makes me more and more aware of how, if you and I are going to, or the world actually is going to create a culture of peace, it's really got to come from the bottom up. People like you and I doing what we can to create this culture of peace. And I believe very, very strongly in the notion that it's going to be rooted in nonviolence. Yes, governments and policies and those types of things have their place, but for me, bottom line, it's up to us, you know. So as you can see, that's it's probably some of you know that's our basic premise here at the Daily Peacemaker. That in order to create a culture of peace, it's got to come from the bottom up, from ordinary people, everyday people like you and I. And it's really, really going to be grounded in nonviolence. And we've done a couple of episodes on what is nonviolence and the need for inner peace and that type of thing. One of the things we've also become really aware of is it is extremely helpful if you have, I'm not sure of the right word to use here, a philosophy, a model, a program of nonviolence that can really help you deepen your understanding of nonviolence and also your practice of nonviolence and your skill at it. And there are many schools, maybe that's another good word, of the practice of nonviolence. What we have found most helpful is what's called the Kingian nonviolence, the Kingian steps and principles of nonviolence, which obviously, given the name, are rooted in Martin Luther King Jr.'s philosophy, his experience, his wisdom, his writings, and people have taken those and come up with these 6 steps and 6 principles. So the principles are sort of hot, stirring, soul grounding ideas of how to live nonviolently. And the steps are concrete steps or concrete ways of analyzing a particular problem and how to go about reaching a point of reconciliation. So myself and 2 of my really good friends, Pam McDonald and Madeline Labriola, who are all second level certified nonviolent trainers, did a series of videos focused on the 6 principles and the 6 steps of Kingian nonviolence. And so we would like to take this opportunity to share with you these award-winning, free, no advertisement videos for you to consider. So, well, actually, they're not award-winning, but they are free and open to the public, as is everything that appears on our website, the dailypeacemaker.com. So let me see if I can find these here. I got to get them from the Google Drive over to embedded in this podcast. So we're moving forward. So we want principles 1, 2, and 3. And I start off a little bit with about the steps in this, but don't get confused. It's more how these things all flow together. So let's see. So we're gonna go over here and share. We're almost there. Here we go. And then we'll get rid of
I'm
this.
here with my good friends, Pam McDonald and Madeline Labriola. And we're going to discuss the 6 principles of Kingian nonviolence. And like the 6 steps, they are all interrelated. It's not like you get proficient at step 1 and say, oh, I really got this and I'm ready to go. And then you move to step 2. And now it's more the back and forthness. And my experience, I've always found that as I do the steps, they get deeper and deeper, more and more nuances to each step. And, you run into a situation and you realize, wow, this really fits step 4, let's say, for example, and I've just never really realized that before. So they're nuanced, they're deep, they interflow, and it would take a lifetime plus a few more years to really get them as part of your nature. And that's sort of the goal, to get them so they become almost second nature to you. But that takes a lot of practice, a lot of skill. So that being said, I can start us off with the first principle, which is nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. So I'll say that again, nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. Excuse me, when I was first started studying, getting involved with nonviolence years ago, and I read this first principle, and I said, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know that I would call myself a courageous person. To me, courageous people are people that put their lives on the line day in and day out, like, firemen, and now with the virus, the doctors and nurses, and those are courageous people to me. And then also I began to, over the years, I realized that we all are courageous to a degree, and courage is something that can grow. And if you get, also another thing, it sounded a little bit egoic to me at first. It's almost like, well, if you're courageous, then you practice nonviolence. But if you don't practice nonviolence, then you must not be a very courageous person. So there's that little piece to it too. So the other piece to it is it's a way of life. So it's something for me that I've always been trying to incorporate more and more in my daily life. And there's an old saying that the goal of nonviolence is to be less violent today than you were yesterday. And so that's a lifelong journey. And what is nonviolence? What are the pieces to this? It's really attempting to live your daily life in a nonviolent way, which doesn't mean that you have to partake in demonstrations or be up there with the microphone leading a nonviolent demonstration. You may at some point do that, but for me, it's more about my daily life. Not cursing someone out if they cut me off on the highway, or not making fun of someone I might disagree with on a principle, or not castigating them. So it's more for me the daily life, and it also begins to take courage, because part of daily life is you might be at a party and see a couple of people sort of getting into an argument, and do you want to intervene in that? That would take some courage. also, as you get more and more into nonviolence, people will probably call you naive. You know, if you're out standing in a nonviolent protest, people drive by and start yelling at you, and you know, you might get positive support, but they might start yelling, "Get a job," you know, and things like that. So you'd be subjected to some unpleasant experiences. So you have to. That's where the courage comes in. You know, as you develop the skills and the knowledge, you get more courageous, and eventually, well, over a period of time, becomes more and more part of your daily living. So those are the two things that stick with me from this principle. It's a way of life. You know, it's not like a one-shot, you know, demonstration here and there. It's a way of life. So ideally, you know, you get less and less violent each day, and also your courage. It does take some courage. So that's like a semi-superficial view of that principle, because there's a whole lot more to it. So with that, I'll pass it over to who's next?
Madeline.
Madeline. All right.
Yeah, it's me.
Take it away.
You did more than a superficial job on that, Frank. I think that you definitely talked about how you could, that it's a process, a learning process, and we are doing this. There are many ways you could do it, but just how you treat other people is certainly part of that.
Yeah.
So I have the second principle, which I really, it was one of those things that I guess I knew for a long time, but didn't have the words to put to it. And it's that the beloved community is a framework for the future. And the beloved community is such a beautiful word itself, I think, you know, if you think about it, those two words. And a lot of the things we've been reading about now or doing now with protests and racism and the coronavirus is, a lot of people mention this, that we need to build a beloved community in order for all of us to live in safety and harmony, and with people like who are not wearing masks or not following, they are not thinking of the other person. You know, they're thinking of themselves. And in the beloved community, you're not only thinking of the people you love and the people you accept and the people within your circle, but you're also very aware of those people who are, I'm going to say, in opposition to you, or the other, the person that dresses funny to your eyes, somebody of another religion, someone who is of a different political party. Those are not your enemies. Those are still part of the beloved community. And I think that's the biggest challenge. I'm going to speak for myself. That's the biggest challenge for me, is the love your enemies theory, if you want to take it from a Christian perspective. And I think Dr. King did basically develop this idea from the Christian tradition, that he was, and of course he studied other religions too, and I think it's true for all religions really, is the fact that we must learn to live, not only live, coexist, but really love each other and really care about, and when one person suffers, we all suffer. And so Dr. King said something interesting. I've just checked my notes to make sure I said, he said that when you solve a problem nonviolently, you're building up the beloved community. When you solve something violently, you end up with tragic bitterness. So yes, does the war come to an end? Yes, does the people find peace if they're being threatened? A policeman stops you from doing something with a gun or whatever. When using violence or the threat of violence brings bitterness and resentment, as opposed to how do you deal with that in a nonviolent way, which each person is being respected for who they are and where they are. To me, it's a really big challenge. It's probably the biggest challenge we're facing. in today's shrinking world, and we're all dependent on each other. So, the thing is that the person that sees differently than you has been a victim of their circumstances, as well as you are a victim of your own circumstances. So if you've had a life in which people have encouraged you to be nonviolent, to listen to the other person, you gain skills about loving your neighbor and taking care of each other and social justice issues, then that's your background. But your opponent may not have had that same opportunity or background. So they're as much of a victim to their, and that's what we always have to remember, that there is a humanity and a deepness in each person. The Quakers say the light, see the light in the other person. So I think we do that by a lot of reflection, prayer, learning about nonviolence, studying it, knowing the places where it has worked and using those as models for ourselves, and always preaching that. We are a beloved community and everybody has a place in it. So I love this. Like I said, it's about correcting injustice and about producing positive force in our society so that injustice won't happen again. So unfortunately, we've seen that often, like with the civil rights movement. Well, it was violent on one part. The protesters, the civil rights leaders weren't violent, but there was violence used against them, for sure. But it seems like it's still happening, even though we were hopeful that the change would have been permanent. But it's not. Of course, we're taking little tiny steps at a time when we need to take, we feel like we need huge steps, same way with environmental justice. So I think building the beloved community is definitely difficult, but really worth it in the end. I think we need to keep that in mind as a goal in our hearts and reaching out to other people the best that we can. So that's the second principle. I think it's a very important one, and it flows from yours. The first one, it flows right into that it takes courage.
I would, if I could, those are great points you made. I've found, the beloved community is different organization, religion, groups, whatever, use a different word. Like in the Christian tradition, the kingdom of heaven to me is the same as the beloved community. In the integral world, a lot of people talk about non-dual consciousness. That's the same, so there's a lot of words that are saying the same thing. And I find that really helpful to keep in mind. And then the other piece that I would add is, even if you're not engaged in a protest meeting or dealing with an enemy, even the daily kindnesses that you do, holding the door open for someone, I love the image of building, because whatever we do can be like, maybe you're taking the 2x4 to put up in the beloved community, or maybe you are putting some nails to put a couple of pieces of wood together. So that image of even the smallest things are part of building the beloved community. So I think that's good to keep in mind. You don't have to be out saving the world. But those are, those protests and the working for peace and justice definitely are definitely part of building that community. But
yeah, your daily life, yeah, I think that's true. And then you pass that along. It's like, paying it forward kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that it's easy though to have a beloved community within your own social economic group. you know? So
Yeah.
we all get along, we're all trying to be nonviolent, well, but it's when you reach out beyond that.
Yes, yeah, move out of your bubble, you
Move
know.
out of your bubble, and that's not easy. So,
I don't want to do that, no.
well, you gotta have courage. That's-
Yes, yeah, and yeah, that does take courage to do.
Yes, to move
That
out of
does.
your comfort zone and not to be confrontational, but to be accepting and loving
Mhm.
in spite of what you may know about the other person.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and every person has something to contribute as well.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, so getting to that place where everybody feels that their contribution makes a difference, that what they have to say is important.
Mhm.
That's what I love about Braver Angels, actually, that group that we talked about before, I think, that where they're trying to bring political sides together to hear each other.
Mhm.
And to not be so determined that you only have one side, you only have one side of the story. You have your-
Yes, exactly.
So, anyway, it's a challenge. I know it's a challenge for me, so I'm sure.
Oh, amen. Yes, indeed.
So I guess we can move on to number 3 then.
Number three is one of my favorites. I mean, they all have meaning for me, but this one is an actual approach in a way that I think some of the others aren't. So the third one is attack forces of evil, not the persons doing the evil. And there's a tendency in our culture, I guess handed down for generations and generations, to be offended by something and go look for the person that committed the offense, so that you can go and attack that person. And certainly in the milieu we're in right now, it's easy to pick out people who just, they have the wrong attitude, they have the wrong point of view, they do the wrong things, and just want to, I mean, destroy, at least politically or in some fashion, destroy that other person so that they can't do that damage anymore. But the problem is that destroying the people does not actually fit the problem, because the person that you happen to see in your life that shows up as the evildoer is just symptomatic of something that runs much deeper in our society and in our culture. So you're not handling the problem by handling the person that you happen to see as a transgressor. You have to go deeper than that. Like, what is motivating that person? What is speaking to other people that that person is promoting? Like, why are people aligning with things that look evil to you? You have to just go really deep. You have to attack the forces of evil. So what are the systems involved? What are the cultural assumptions involved in perpetuating the evil? Because in the end, aren't we going back ultimately to the beloved community? So the person that we so want to vilify is actually a part of our beloved community, like it or not. And we need to figure out how to be inclusive of those people who seem so terribly wrong to us. So as soon as I have a reaction, maybe a natural human reaction, who knows how long ago this starts, if I have a negative reaction to a person, that's a signal to me. Okay, stop there, take another look. What is the system? What is the dynamic? What are the assumptions that underlie the behavior that is so upsetting to me? And then start to understand and address those things, remembering to maintain, however difficult it might be, respect for the dignity of every human being, even the ones who make us go mad with our, and upset. So it's tremendously challenging, sometimes at every level, whether it's in your family or in your community or in the nation or in the world. We need to keep our eyes on the prize, keep our eyes on what it is we're trying to achieve, not just retaliate against people who seem to be the face of what is so upsetting.
I think it's because it's much easier to see the problem as the person. The system is so complex. And the immediate reaction is, well, if I take this person out, God forbid, you know what I mean? I'm paraphrasing or whatever, I'm making up something, but take this person away, don't vote for them. I didn't mean take them out, like kill them, but you know what I mean? Even not vote for them, that all the problems will go away. When the system is so complicated and so complex and so deep, that just seems like at least that's something you could do. It's more tangible. You know? So how you get to the deeper part, I think is, got any ideas?
Yeah. One of the ways to think about it is that person is just representative of a mindset that permeates everywhere. So when you attack that person, you actually solidify the people that hold that mindset. You make them stronger and want to band together.
Yes.
Whereas if you let go of the personal animosity and just look carefully at the source, at the systems, the attitude, and so on, maybe that's the place where you can deal. I think of, Dr. King dealing with Bull Connor. If he had picked a fight with Bull Connor, he would have gotten nowhere in his objectives. He needed to let Bull Connor be Bull Connor and then continue to hold the stand, his own dignified stand, and maintaining his attitude of dignity toward everybody involved in the situation. And then people could keep their eyes on the issue that he was bringing to the fore, rather than make it a personal, antipathy.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, these things are all so complex. I think you touched upon one of the things that I sort of have a bias towards, and that is the change has to come from the bottom up, from individual people. So if I find someone like on Facebook that, or in private conversation that has views opposing mine, I want to find out from that person what that's rooted in. What are those beliefs rooted in that person has? What in him or her has led them to this point where they disagree with me, and vice versa. What in me is causing me to be upset with their point of view? So I don't want to lose sight of that, because I think a lot of people maybe are not moved to take part in demonstrations and nonviolent resistance on a large scale, but they might be quite good at establishing relationships with people that they disagree with, and finding out within themselves what's causing them to have such a reaction, and what's causing the other person to have the beliefs and values that they have. And that, to me, is a real important thing that many people, all of us, can do on a individual daily basis. So I don't want to lose sight of that important piece. Instead of attacking that individual person for their beliefs and call them a jerk or whatever, stepping back and trying to enter into a dialogue with them as to, what's really in their deepest part that's leading them to have these beliefs and values. So that's my, one of the things that I.
How does that work?
Hi, so back, I ended that at that point. Some people say, oh, you did that because you got the last word, Frank, but that may be true. I don't know. I don't think so, or I like to think that's not true. There was only a few more comments, but in terms of the time involved in these things and all that, that's why I ended it, I think. So that being said, first of all, I hope you enjoyed it. Secondly, if you Google the Kingian steps and principles and steps, there are a lot of deep, well, I don't know if they're deeper, but there are a lot of other websites that have a lot of information about them and insights and perspectives. This is also, this particular session, as all of them, will be on the dailypeacemaker.com. They're all archived, so you can share them with friends or go back and look at them. Our plan is to do 3 more of this. You know, the next one would be on the 4, 5, and 6 of the principles, and then 1, 2, 3 of the steps, and 4, 5, 6 of the steps. And then at some point, I'm thinking maybe have a little panel discussion with some friends around each of the principles and steps individually, and kind of their experience of them, what they think, those types of things. So what would be really helpful, and when we get to do that, might be a couple of months from now, but what would be really helpful, if you have questions, insights, comments, challenges, anything about the whole issue of creating a peace, anything, creating peace, coming from the ordinary, everyday people, and the steps and principles, we would love to hear them. Questions, insights, challenges, sharing your experiences. So if you go to the website, you can email me, or if you go to contacts, you can email me or call me. Also, there is if you go to resources, there is a link there to the steps and principles, where you can download a document that has the 6 steps and principles. So as always, thanks for listening. As always, appreciate your comments, insights. And even in these somewhat dark times, it's really up to us. You know, I mean, you know, the people you saw, myself, Madeline, and Pamela, we're just ordinary people. We're not like specialists about anything. And we were able to take these courses on nonviolence, which really anybody can do. And we learned a lot, and just trying to do our little piece, you know, that whole, there's just so much going on with the interconnectedness of all of us, and how we can really, really create this beloved community, the kingdom of God, the Omega Point, all those non-dual consciousness. But it really is up to us. I don't think it's going to get done politically or in those areas. They might. I'm not disputing them entirely, but bottom line, it's up to you and I. So that being said, let me end this with this little. It's a Cherokee prayer blessing. I'm going to try to do this at the end of each session and with a little something. So again, a Cherokee prayer blessing. May the warm winds of heaven blow softly upon your house. May the Great Spirit bless all who enter there. May your moccasins make happy tracks in many snows, and may the rainbow always touch your shoulder. Isn't that beautiful? So there it is. Peace to all, and hope to see you soon. You all take care.